racism first, right? Mm-hmm. So that 5% of them has that racism in them, but it's in their heritage. They've been taught to what they've been taught to believe. It's part of systematic racism and oppression.
Yeah, I think definitely to that point is one thing I've always kind of talked about and noticed is, you have Europe, which is a tundra, and it is not a place like, Kenya, for example, that has 3 harvests a year, So I always, sometimes I've made a joke. White folks came to Africa and just, saw this land of plenty, and folks is dancing around, and they got food and good looking women and meat and water and they suited up. They got guns, they got armor on, and they because where they come from is it's real cold, and it's not much food, and it's a whole lot of people in a spot of fifth the size of Africa. You know what I mean? And they probably leaned in and looked at these diamonds and was like, "What?" And then somebody hit the gun, and the gun went off, and off ran all the black folks, and they looked at each other and was like, "Hey, I think I know what to do." But seriously though, I do think that's a big, black folks were not the first slaves to the Romans. The first slaves were the Franks, were the Germanics, they were the Britons. This is something that they've been subjected to themselves in a lot of ways for a very long time.
I'm going to bring that full circle because in our podcast with Asia Dorsey, she really talks about how white people first colonized themselves and then colonized the world. So definitely check out that podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, Michel Foucault talks about that too. Basically, the history of Europe is a history of colonization of other Europeans. That's what the feudal system was about. It's like, how do we essentially make people into vessels, into, our property.
So I'm going to end on a lighter note, too, actually.
I know, right?
We need some lighter notes.
Let's do it real quick, though, man. This is terrible.
We need some lighter notes.
This is terrible.
Little turn. So the first one is Cromat is writing the pool rules with a new ad campaign, which really challenges how we see bodies. So they're going to have people of diverse body size, body hair, LGBTQ. So they're really kind of covering the gamut with that. And then the other kind of pop culture is, of course, Cardi B and Offset. But Cardi B just had her baby. Low culture for the culture. So shout out to her.
Wait, I don't understand. What's the Cromat and the pool rules?
So they changed the game on like swimsuit wear, right? Because usually, we have the skinny models and the swimsuits, and we have this like one size fits all about body image and what people should look like when they're sunbathing. And so they really wanted to have an ad campaign that really like showed diversity, and not just simple diversity, but like just simple things. Like there are people who don't like to shave, and that's kind of a taboo, right? So actually showing that like it's okay to go to the beach in your body, it's okay to go to the pool in your body. We all can't be Tyra and Naomi, right? We all have to come as we are. I come with my stretch marks and everything after my 3 kids, and I go to the pool because we're all allowed that, right? We should be able to exist. Yeah, exist in your skin.
And dopeness. So speaking of, you've been hearing 2 new voices on the podcast, Patric and Isra, Izzy, and what y'all doing in St. Louis? Isra, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
And tell us about yourself. Where you from? Yeah. Where your grandmama from?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm here in St. Louis to support Cori Bush. Cori Bush is a candidate that's running for U.S. Congress to represent Missouri's 1st district, to be the first.
Word.
And I'm really excited about her campaign. Our organization endorses and runs regular working people for Congress all across the country.
That's
so we have 29 campaigns. We're looking for folks that have a track record of integrity, that are always doing the right thing in their community, that always speak truth to power and are not afraid to challenge the establishment. And these are folks that we've recruited and are currently running very successful campaigns to date.
And Corey was your first candidate, right?
She was our first candidate that we announced, correct.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, I spent a lot of time in Philly. Grew up in Philly. I grew up in Jamaica country, West Indies.
Word.
And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina right now.
Dopeness.
I grew up in Southwest Atlanta. I went to
ATL.
Morehouse in Atlanta. One
Morehouse,
of the
house.
ATLians that
So what
did.
So what's your work here while you're in St. Louis?
And so I'm working on Corey's campaign, trying to help get another win, man.
That's right.
Wait, another win. Who was
much needed win. Not only just for, for the movement and for this country. We're woefully behind in policy that actually would create a serious quality of life for our citizens. So, by getting her elected, hopefully we can catch up for 30 years of 60 years of 200. What? I'm sorry.
So I just have a question, because this has been on my mind all day as I've been out canvassing in the streets, talking to people. For those, especially for those of us who are don't really have faith in the system. For those of us who don't feel like electoral politics really offers us any kind of liberation or freedom, right? So that's something that's out there. Why should we? I know why I'm getting behind, but what would you tell people? Why should we get behind someone like Cori Bush, someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out of New York? Why should we get behind?
First victory, by the way, of brand new Congress.
That's right.
Well, that's not really true.
Oh, okay.
We have other candidates that have won, people.
Well, one of the most.
Yeah, Alex had a lot of momentum for sure on her campaign, but we've won a couple of campaigns in Texas. But to answer your question, that's the stuff that I hear every day, because I've been traveling across this country talking to people from all socioeconomic backgrounds, and it's resonated the same way. Like, we're sick of politics as usual. And how are you different? How's your candidate different than anybody else? And my thing is, and how much faith do I have in these people too? As a person who has sacrificed everything for this movement, I see the sacrifices that these candidates make every day. I talk to them every day. I know that there are people that are still working 1 to 2 jobs and running a campaign and taking care of their kids. So that should show you something, that they're actually dedicated to work for the people. And also, if they've pledged to not take corporate dollars, that goes a long way, because the establishment candidates that we see every time is people that it's easy if you just sign on with Emily's List or DCCC, then you're a shoo-in. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to knock on doors. You don't have to get mobilization efforts down. All you need is that money to pay for radio ads and digital ads and TV ads. And you never see anybody out there doing the work. So when you're seeing the candidate, his or herself, out on the doors, and you're seeing enthusiasm, that's a real difference for me, because I came into this through Bernie Sanders because he was the only one that actually spoke to the issues I cared about. Everyone else was very much the status quo type of candidate. And, a lot of people are disappointed with his loss and have given up on the political process. And now what I'm seeing is a new wave of politics. Like, politics can be interesting to talk about. Don't be afraid of it. Talk about the issues that you really care about and elect candidates that are going to address these issues, rather than skirting around it and saying like whatever the establishment wants you to say and sort of, aligning with the status quo. Because what you're seeing is like a lot of middle of the road people that won't make decisions that are leadership decisions.
Right.
And these are the types of candidates that we have on our slate that are bold and honest and 100% real. And, my biggest fear is, it's not even a fear, but it's also like we have to hold ourselves accountable for what we're presenting here. Because in a lot of ways, as I mentioned earlier, it's like the last straw. Like, a lot of people will give up after this cycle. Like, okay, we had more of a turnout in this midterm election. Maybe we have a higher turnout in the general. But if we fail them in two years, by the time 2020 rolls around, we're going to lose everything.
Right.
And so we have to show up. And I think we need to prove a point in this. At least if Corey wins and Alex wins and all of our candidates win,
right,
we need to make sure that we're holding those campaign promises to the value that exists there. And so that's why I'm working towards electing regular working people, because these are folks that, obviously they're not career politicians and they're not playing the game. They're playing outside of the game. Mm-hmm. And then literally 3 weeks before the primary election, all of a sudden they're popular candidates and, oh, you exist, you're a real person and you have a chance.
Yeah.
But where were they when the campaign first started? So at the end of the day, these people they're going to stick by the folks that have been with them from the beginning, the initial volunteers, the organizations that endorse them, and really working together with those folks before, during, and after the election. So that's what our whole campaign is about. It's not about
there's that accountability piece. It's the accountability piece that you have with your organization that's not there when you're running. Basically, it's kind of like that big box store versus, maybe the mom and pop retail, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's that more accountability, with me being in local politics, being on a school board. I always say that I'm your neighbor. You can knock on my door. You can know where I live. It's really easy. You'll see me at the grocery stores. And so there's that accountability to myself and the public versus someone like the person who's running against Corey, or really he's not even running yet. Mm-hmm. He's not accountable. I've never seen him he's from the same city that I live in. Mm-hmm. I've never seen him in the grocery store. I've never seen him walking down the street at a high school football game. So there's no accountability. I can't knock on his door. He doesn't hold town halls here in St. Louis. So that is part of, I think, what drives people crazy is that we feel like once we cast that vote, we're pretty much out of that process. Mm-hmm.
But then also, we're running campaigns. I have a couple of campaigns I can think of where the incumbent is quote unquote progressive. But then again, voters are just looking at that P, like we look at the D, vote blue no matter who type of thing. And now we're all very much over that, by the way. Right. We are not down with ride the blue wave whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's another good point, because I was talking to this gentleman about Corey's campaign today, and he looked at her and he goes, oh, is she a Democrat? And I was like, well, she might run as a Democrat, but I don't think that's where her values are. And so we started talking, and I was like, well, he said he was more like libertarian kind of Tea Party guy. But then we started talking about things that we would have in common, like local control of schools. I think that that's something that I would want. You would want that also. Mm-hmm. So let's find these common grounds. So how do you find common ground with people that we think we don't have common ground with?
Right.
But still really do, actually, when you get to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, and I think, our job is to really create an informed voter, because I know my experience, I was never an informed voter. And I was just the choice of the lesser of two evils, and now we have choices that are amazing people that are on the ballot. And, this year alone, I can count about 50 people that I know personally have run for office, and that's amazing.
Right.
These are people that I know, grew up with, went to college with, that are now running for office. And I think there's a new wave coming. This is a new wave where it's we're thinking about our incumbents that have been in their seat 20, 30, 40 years almost. And you look at their track record and look at their voting record. A lot of people don't really do that research. Quite honestly, I never did before I got involved with politics. But we can be the voice of really look to this policy and say, how much have they flip-flopped, and are they just catering to whatever is in the now, Abolish ICE? We support #Abolish ICE. We were the first organization to ever talk about Abolish ICE. And now it's a big national conversation.
Can you talk a little bit about Abolish ICE?
Yeah, so looking at ICE, the agency itself is really created to just really ostracize and sort of the way kind of in the same way we look at the Trump administration as sort of, this agency of fear, and that to be against another culture, to be against immigrants, and for, our whole thing is a clear pathway to citizenship, and that means recognizing who we are as a country and the fact that we are all here because of people coming into this country and making a life for each other. And, you know, the ICE agency, the detainment and